What up? What up? What up, guys? We're doing a little recording here. I snagged this reading, I feel like at the last second, or I had an idea for what I wanted to read, essentially about like the founding fathers and their ideas of like um democracy and republicanism. But then the original article I wanted to read, it was fucking paywalled because the paywalling or the commodification of information. Um, so then I found another article that might be similar. I don't know. I haven't really like read into it yet. It's just called American Founding Narratives: Monarchy and Republicanism, the largely unsought and incomplete democratic revolution. It's by Barry Allen Shane from the Colgate University. I'm guessing that's where he published it under. These are like reference points, I'm guessing: The Fate of the Revolution, Unions Debate the Constitution, Common Democracy, Reading the Politics of Participation in the Early United States, and The Royalist Revolution, Monarchy and the American Founding. But we're not here to read all that boring bullshit. Actually, let me also I don't want to like full screen per se. There is what I'm looking for. That's sexy. That's sexy right there. But we're also going to do a little zoom out. Sorry for all the blind fucks who can't see, but we got good eyesight over here. We'll do. I wish there was a number like the zoom in and zoom out, but I like this. This is a good framing. So yeah, we're just gonna read about some American history, and hopefully we'll all have fun learning some shit together. Okay. Abstract. Most of these works argue that the American consensus narrative of an effortless and an intentional democratic founding is an incomplete story and, in many ways, an errant one. Errant. Sorry, I gotta, you know me, when I don't know words, I gotta Google search them real quick. Errant. Something or something that has strayed from an accepted path, behaved incorrectly, or is wandering aimlessly. Ooh, I like that. American Foundation. And I'm gonna put errant. Something or someone that has strayed from an accepted path, behaved incorrectly, or is wandering aimlessly typically implies that a rule, boundary, or intended direction has been violated or missed. Okay, in many ways, an errant one. Three of the works argue that a significant part of the founding elite continued to hold into the 1780s a high regard for governments like Britain's limited monarchy, some of whose institutions, especially concerning the upper legislative house and executive, they sought in part to build into the new federal constitution. These authors contend that the Constitution was purposefully designed to what is what? Okay, I can't be too loud. The authors contend that the Constitution was purposefully designed to retard American popular democracy, not advance it. What the fuck, bro? Whoa, okay. Indeed, they find that many poor white males, as well as many others, were excluded from the ranks of the politically active in the new nation. Thus, to the extent that a broad based democracy followed the American Revolution, it was imposed from below by popular forces on a resistant gentry population. Gentry. What the fuck is gentry? Refers to a social class. Gentry population. Yeah. Okay. So this is, I mean, it makes sense. Like this is like the sort of aristocratic, high social class people were the ones informing about politics, which in this context, politics being the power of kind of organizing a society. So in the past, that would be more, or arguably, a lot of people still say that the people in higher social classes dictate the politics and the politics of a nation. It was imposed from below by popular forces on a resistant gentry population, not generously awarded from above. The hollowed, um, the hollowed founders most the what the fuck, the hollowed, right? Is that what that's saying? The hollowed or haloed? Oh shit! Wait, hallowed. The hallowed, holy, sacred, or greatly revered and honored. Okay, the hallowed founders mostly didn't willingly seek to advance democratic institutions. Rather, they had to be coaxed to do so to preserve their political careers. Coaxed, bro. What are these words? I mean, I'm guessing coaxed means to gently or persistently persuade, influence someone to do something or go. Okay. Damn. Lazy fucks. Mood. Coaxed. To do so to preserve their political careers. It seems also from these works that how one views James Madison's nature. Maybe I do need to zoom in a little. Views James Madison's stature and probity. Bro, this shit is gonna have too many big words for me. I promise I'm not gonna keep like doing this. We're gonna have like smooth readings, but like these words though. Um probity or probity? Probity. Uh James Madison's stature and probity indicates whether one is a defender of the democratic founding narrative. Keywords: American late colonial and early national political thought, American founders, democracy, republicanism, monarchy, commons or vernacular democracy, marginalized whites, James Madison, political literature, founding narratives. Okay. Are we still in the abstract? No, we're just hopping straight into the reading. Few, I believe, outside the world of professional historians and a handful of various other academics would challenge that the consensus American founding narrative is one of oppressed colonists of mostly British origin who bravely and intentionally threw off in a violent revolution monarchical tyranny in their determined quest for more democratic forms of government. Admittedly, accepting accepting women it's funny because it sounds like I'm saying accepting, but it's actually accepting, exempting, I feel like is a better word. Admittedly accepting women, indigenous people, and enslaved Africans. Yeah, at least three of the four books under review, from what might be described as above and below, that is, from the perspective of elites still well disposed to monarchy, and from that of marginalized people at the bottom of the social hierarchy, do exactly this rather persuasively and thereby challenge. Wait, sorry. Yet at least three of the four books under review, from what might be described as above and below, do exactly this rather persuasively, and thereby challenge the widely accepted consensus narrative of an intentional and broadly based democratic American founding. These work these works offer us alternative narratives that challenge the consensus story of colonial gentry enthusiastically creating and offering to a united American people democratic institutions that gave full voice to the people's economic, political, and social aspirations. Damn. Were the founders of America just different aristocratic fucks? Instead, they demonstrate first that the political landscape, to the degree that only one existed along 1,500 miles of coastline, was anything but unchanging, and most remarkably, had in the short space of 25 years moved from being anti-monarchical to pro monarchical, back again to anti-monarchical, before culminating into the deep divisions over the Constitution, with contending parties on both sides of this issue in the ratification debate. Notably, though, at that point, the publicly politically acceptable, um, the publicly politically acceptable had become democratic republicanism. That is a system of government without strong executive functions, in which popular majorities, singularly and alone, rather than an aristocracy and a monarch, or all working together, determine who governs and what constitutes the common good. This powerfully highlights the rapidity, the rapidity. I wonder if that's how you say that word. The rapidity. The rapidity. Yeah. The rapidity with which a new, more egalitarian political and equally important social terrain had come to the fore in the new nation. Even if imposed from below, of course, there were many who were still excluded. So, yeah, democratic republicanism, a system of government without strong executive functions, in which popular majorities, singularly and alone, uh, determine who governs and what constitutes the common good. Why is it republicanism? What the, what the fuck? Sorry, I just like, it sounded like something was moving in the room. That was scary. Um, where our authors differ, though, concerns whether they support the consensus narrative and, curiously, the role played by James Madison, and two, whether the three who challenge the consensus do so from above, of those supporting a residual royalism, or below, of those seeking inclusion of the most marginalized. I actually didn't just like understand the sentence I just read. Lori Glover, the John Francis Bacon Endowed Chair of History at St. Louis University, stands alone in largely advancing the consensus narrative of the Founding Fathers, intentionally and enthusiastically embracing the republicanism and democratic institutions that the other three authors, along with several other authors recently, I've done so much to put in question. See Hoagland, Breen, Rosbicki, Irvin King, Dana D. Nelson, the Gertrude Conway, Vanderbilt, professor of England at Vanderbilt. Sorry, what am I doing? Put into question. Dana D. Nelson, the Gertrude Conaway Vanderbilt. Dude, what? This girl's so fucking thick. Sorry. Um, I just got so when thick girls just like distract you. A professor of English at Vanderbilt is one of the authors who challenged the consensus narrative, and she does so from the perspective of the poor white citizens marginalized by the liberal political institutions reluctantly embraced by the founding elite. Really, I'm sorry if you guys can hear the other people in the other room. I'm sorry. She does this in a most welcome and innovative fashion by making use of early 19th century novels. Eric Nelson, professor of government at Harvard University, also challenges the consensus narrative, but he does so by highlighting the powerful currents of monarchical thought dominant in the last years of the colony's imperial existence, and again among a numerous elite in the years preceding the writing and ratification of the Constitution. Hmm. Jesus. I'm so sorry, guys. Maybe I should say something, or maybe I shouldn't. Um, Quite possibly the most remarkable book under review, though, is that of Mary Sarah Bilder, professor of law and the Michael and Helen Lee Distinguished Scholar at the Boston College Law School. She, too, can be seen as challenging the consensus from above. But she does so much more. In truth, what Bilder has accomplished borders on the transformational. For this, she's been attacked by those who fervently want to preserve consensus myths, and still more particularly the belief that the founders were moral paragons and that we have ready access to the framers' intent in writing the Constitution, what is known as originalism in constitutional interpretation. Boo! We don't fuck with originalism, okay? We fuck with interpretationism. I think that's the other one, but whatever. Her book and what it reveals about James Madison and his surreptitious revision. Surreptitious? Something done, made, or acquired by stealth or secrecy. Oh. Oh, he was a little sneaky boy? He was a little sneaky. Surreptitious. Surreptitious? Surreptitious? Surreptitious. Ah, I see. In his surreptitious revision, after the fact, of the main source of understanding of what the framers sought, in my mind, is a revolutionary breakthrough in our understanding of early American political thought. Even if both books are radical challenges to the received wisdom regarding the Republican formation of the American federal state, they are not alone. If you will, Eric Nelson and Balder provocatively challenge the consensus narrative from above, while Dana Nelson innovatively does so from below. These authors have collectively argued for, at a minimum, two common themes. One, defended by all four authors, is that the founding period was a time of astonishingly rapid and momentous swings in common political sympathies, including the rise at the end of a pervasive public endorsement of democratic norms and representative institutions. In this instance, only months after the founding elite had gathered in private to frame the Constitution. They did so while continuing to lament the loss of monarchical institutions that they had done their best to build in some fashion into the new Constitution. Second, all but one of the authors challenged the dominant stories. Americans tell themselves regarding the divinely inspired and powerfully democratic nature of the country's founding. Again, to do so from above and one from below. But before returning to these themes, let me introduce each of the works and highlight those elements that merit separate attention. What I really like about this article is it really does put into frame like because we think again it's so easy to be like, oh, the American Revolution, like every single American as this singular identity, as this singular force pushing towards that identity, towards a sort of a categorization of an egalitarian categorization. But in reality, there still would have been a social hierarchy, social statuses. There would have been the common soldier who ended up dying on the battlefield versus someone like George Washington, who had a lot more power and status, who led through the entire. We forget about all the foot soldiers who do die during war, who could have won like a major battle for us, and then it could have helped us win a major battle, and then in the next battle literally have their lives taken. It's crazy to think. So I like how they keep framing like this idea from above and from below. It's above so below though, um whatever that means. Sorry. Glover explores, in a brief work of 5 chapters and a prologue and epilogue, the fate of the Revolution, Virginians debate the Constitution, in the aftermath of the Philadelphia Constitutional Convention that led up to, and then the actual debates in the 1788 Virginia Ratifying Convention. She is the only academic historian among the four authors, with the other three being a political theorist, E. Nelson, a legal scholar, Builder, and a student of early American literature, D. Nelson. And she alone offers support in her work for the dominant founding story that is convincingly contested by each of the other authors, even if in rather different ways. Her defense of the consensus narrative seems to go hand in glove with her support for James Madison and for what is believed, wrongly as Balder shows, to be a product of his goodness and genius, the federal constitution. Thus, Glover early in her account notes that, along with his fellow Virginians, Madison had carefully, thoughtfully, and without hesitation guided the country from rebellion to republicanism, and that in the Philadelphia Convention, the Constitution had been framed by learned men reasoning together to reach a consensus around a plan of government. And this marks a single moment in American history that indeed deserves study and celebration. Strikingly, as is common among the defenders of the consensus narrative, she makes this claim without ever closely examining the actual records of the Federal Convention of 1787. Nonetheless, Or maybe because of this, the Philadelphia Federal Convention in her account comes close to being a moment of divine intervention, not of political infighting and desperate maneuvering by designing and interested human beings with rather different visions of the future of the almost newly unified nation. Maybe somewhat unexpectedly, given the present view of the Constitution as an embodiment of American democratic norms, even Glover reports that a decisive majority of delegates in the largest, richest, and arguably most important state chose to serve in the Virginia Convention, uh, had run on platforms of opposition to the Constitution, right? And a feared loss of long-standing Republican principles, in particular ceding an unchecked power of taxation to a distant government. This, of course, was familiar territory, one well rehearsed during the build-up to the for Independence, but whether it was particularly Republican or simply a mainstay of British and then American constitutionalism is less clear. Yet, in the end, when the Virginia delegates voted on June 25th, 1788, Glover reports the tally was 89 to 79 in favor of ratification. The elite supporters of the Constitution had swayed the sentiments of its well educated opponents into agreement with them. Still, a movement of 5 delegates would have swung the whole vote the other way. Jesus, Jesus, man. They're like talking about a baby. Oh my God. And the fucking baby's being lied to. From below, the view, it seems, was rather different. Our guide in this exploration is a rather unexpected source, that is, a professor of literature. In addition, though, not only is Dana Nelson's field unexpected, but so is her creative and welcome approach to studying early American democracy. That is, literary texts, with most of them, in fact, critical of that to which they gave voice. Her use of literature to explore that which might otherwise go unobserved is something sorely and long needed, not only possibly in literature, but more certainly in exactly those fields in which one should have expected these texts and ideas to have been fully canvassed. Let me mention another impressive study that also explores from the below the view of early American democracy. That is Nancy Eisenberg's White Trash, the 400-year untold history, the untold history of class in America. She too it makes use of novels while relying in the main of elite authored both domestic and foreign travel literature. Other than a dozen or so well explored exceptions, such as Burnaby, Crevecoeur, Crevecoeur, I'm guessing, and De Tocqueville. She's so fucking bad. Sorry, that girl walked away again. This is also a literary genre that has not yet been sufficiently mined for the light it can shine on the views of those whose voices might otherwise go unrecorded. See also Handelin. This whole fucking paragraph, well, I guess the later half of the fucking paragraph is literally just in parentheses. What the fuck? Okay, sorry. Nelson develops her innovative. Let me just look at something. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. This might be my last paragraph I read. Nelson develops her innovative approach in Commons Democracy, reading the politics of participation in the early United States, a work a work with an introduction and 5 chapters. She highlights that she intends to bring to light otherwise difficult to discern political traditions and norms as discoverable in political and social novels. As she explains, this is necessary for 2 reasons. First, because the letters of the non elite, uh, to the degree they were literate, have been preserved. And second, and equally persuasively, almost only through novels are we able to get a good glimpse of democratic practices that are little visible in national level political institutions and elite theorizing then and now. It is in literature, then, that these alternate visions are more readily to be captured. This book, therefore, is self consciously distinct from most others in American literature. That is, Nelson is explicitly not offering a literary theory per se, but rather she is using the novels to make an argument about history and the political knowledge we generate from its study. She is to be lauded and thanked for doing so. Lauded. Oh my God. Okay, they are talking about childbirth. To praise, extol, or speak highly of something, usually in a very public or formal. Yeah, that's all we're gonna read today. Also, fucking girls next door are so loud. I wonder if they heard me. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyways, that's all the reading I'm gonna do today. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully, hopefully it wasn't too distracting. I was a little distracted, unfortunately, but yeah. I love you guys, and I love our journey of information. Uh, so yeah, have good times. Love you. Bye.